Hi everybody, welcome back. This is Dan Cirucci and this is The Advocates on RVN TV. Remember, you can find us anytime at rvntv.tv and you can find me anytime at dancirucci.com. And we do have an advocate with us today. It's somebody who I've been wanting to have on the program for quite some time, and that is Scott Sigman. Scott, yes. How are you?
How are you, Dan?
It's great to see you again. Scott, you and I have known each other quite a while.
Yeah, we've known each other almost 20 years.
Oh my goodness. And Scott is a very successful Philadelphia lawyer. So like I say, he is an advocate. You've been a lawyer almost 20 years.
That's right. We first met when you were at the Philadelphia Bar Association.
That's right. You, Scott, were involved with the young lawyers of the Bar Association.
That's right. When I graduated law school, I got involved with the Young Lawyers Division, and we ran many successful programs in Philadelphia, including my most favorite, the Goldilocks Trial Program, where we bring first graders and second graders from the Philadelphia public schools into City Hall, and we prosecute Goldilocks for breaking and entering the Three Bears home and stealing some porridge.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Yeah, and the kids learn about the criminal justice system.
And you loved working with kids.
That's the best.
You have two kids of your own.
That's right, I have two 6-year-old twins.
Oh my goodness.
Marco and Sylvia.
They must be a joy.
They are the best.
And Scott, I learned this about Scott. I didn't know this till today. But Scott, you are a dual citizen of both the United States and Italy.
That's right.
How did this happen? Although you're not by lineage Italian.
Right, but I married an Italian citizen. So at birth, my children became Italian citizens as well as American citizens. And I applied for citizenship through marriage. So I'm also a citizen of Italy as well as the United States. And Italy's part of the European Union, which gives me citizenship in the EU as well.
Does it make it any easier when you travel in Europe?
Well, I don't know if you've been following the news lately. There's been, between the Brexit and a variety of other international issues, the European Union is actually thinking of imposing visas on anybody visiting, including Americans. Right now, if it's a short visit, you can go to any European country, France, Italy, Germany, without a visa.
Right.
They're thinking of imposing some visa restrictions. If you have an Italian passport, you can enter as a European. You would not have to get a visa. Another thing is, I do guest lecture at a few of the law schools there, La Sapienza in Rome and Bocconi in Milan, as well as we had a program at Temple University, Rome. By being an Italian citizen, I'm able to work and get paid without having to apply for visas. I can work in the United States and Italy without a problem.
Amazing, and you get to vote in Italian elections.
That's right, American and Italian elections, that's correct.
Oh my goodness, and I don't know, I sometimes think it's difficult enough voting in American elections without voting in elections of a foreign country.
That's right.
Scott, you have always impressed me as a very, as a whirlwind of energy from when I've known you, as a very intense person, as a whirlwind of energy. I want to ask you, and you've been very successful in the criminal justice system.
Yes.
What was it that drew you to the law in the first place?
Well, always growing up, I always watched all those law shows. You know, really, it was when I grew up, it was LA Law. That was the big show.
Right.
And on that show, my favorite was the prosecutor and the defense attorney. And I wanted to be in the criminal justice system. I wanted to be the prosecutor. And as I grew up, eventually Law and Order came out. So while I'm in college, all of a sudden now Law and Order is the new show.
Right.
And that show really defined exactly what I wanted to do. And that is be a prosecutor and fight for justice and put serious offenders, bad people that hurt people in prison. And that's what I wanted to do. And that was very important to me. And that became my goal. And I spent all of law school trying to achieve that goal, which I finally did.
What, did you have a law enforcement background in your family? Was anyone in your family in law enforcement or anything like that? Or that it influenced you in that direction?
The family background for me, my great-grandfather who was actually born before 1900. He was born 1898, but lived to 99 years old. So I
Lord.
grew up with him most of my life, and he was my true inspiration. He worked in City Hall. He was a deputy tax assessor.
In Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia. So just his experience in City Hall and his devotion for the city of Philadelphia really inspired me. And he always wanted me to work in the city and for the city in some capacity. And that's what I did.
And you're a native Philadelphian. You grew up
Yes.
in Northeast Philadelphia.
That's right.
So he's a very, very proud Philadelphian. But Scott, you came to work for the legendary District Attorney Lynn Abraham as an assistant DA, and you worked for this trailblazing woman who was really a tough, legendary district attorney. What was it like?
Well, as our former mayor Frank Rizzo said, Lynn Abraham was a tough cookie. That was really the tagline, and she was. Lynn was a fabulous boss. It is still the greatest job I've ever held in my capacity as a lawyer or as a person. Lynn was a fabulous boss, incredible amount of integrity, incredible amount of passion, and all she did was want to seek justice in Philadelphia. She wanted to take people that break the law and provide the appropriate sentence for them, which in many cases from serious offenders was long prison sentences. Mm-hmm. But she also wanted respect, and she also maintained dignity in her office. She was fabulous. She was an incredible boss, but she was also very caring. And she cared for the staff.
And she had been a judge before that.
That's right.
And she was really part of like the first or second generation of women to really break through.
That's right.
In the law. And was she like a mentor to you, Scott?
She was absolutely a mentor. We actually called her judge. She still kind of maintained the title of judge.
Yes.
So Judge Abraham, she was an assistant DA, and then Mayor Rizzo had put her on the RDA for a short period, and then she became a municipal court judge, and then a court of common pleas judge before becoming DA.
Right.
She had some very interesting cases, including she was a municipal court judge involving Ira Einhorn.
Oh, yes.
And she was then a court of common pleas judge involving Gary Heidnick, two of the most famous murder cases in Philadelphia.
Unbelievable. And she eventually, after years, put Ira Einhorn behind bars.
Very interesting story. Back in 1979, a Philly cop named Mike Chitwood, who's now the chief of police Upper Darby,
Right.
applied for a search warrant that was signed by Lynn Abraham to execute a search warrant at 3411 Ray Street, second floor, where they found Holly Maddox's body in a trunk. And then, as we know, Ira Einhorn escaped our country and eventually was found in France. But Lynn Abraham didn't give up. She first prosecuted him in absentia, meaning an empty chair,
Right.
and got a conviction for first-degree murder. Then we were able to find him and bring him back to the United States.
Through Interpol,
Right.
I think it was.
And I was in the office at the time, and I was there when Ira Einhorn was prosecuted for the second time. And again, he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, where he remains in a state correctional institution in Pennsylvania.
An unbelievable story from a woman who was an inspiration and who really was committed to going after the bad guys.
And never giving up.
Never gave up. And I was in the Palm, having lunch in the Palm the day that she got that conviction of Einhorn, and she came into the Palm afterwards, and the entire restaurant stood up and applauded her, gave her a standing ovation.
That's beautiful.
It was unbelievable, Neil. Now, Scott, you really went after, as assistant district attorney, a lot of bad people and were involved in a lot of serious homicide and drug cases.
Yes, I was in a special unit in the office called the Special Narcotics Prosecution Unit, where we would work with the police before the arrest occurred, and we'd work with a special unit called the VRT, the Violent Response Team. So what would happen is there'd be a shooting or some type of violence in a neighborhood, and usually that violence is somehow connected or somehow involved with the drug trade. So we'd follow these people, we'd surveil these people, we'd get search warrants, we'd find drugs and guns, and then we'd prosecute them. And in this unit, we'd prosecute them from the beginning to the end. So I'd be on the case from the very beginning asking for high bail, prosecuting them at the preliminary hearing stage, going through the trial stage, following them through sentencing, and involving the community. And we also would go after their houses in forfeiture, and their cars, and the guns. We'd seize everything. So we'd involve civil forfeiture, and we'd also involve criminal prosecution, and we'd involve the community. We'd bring the community in, because this affected the community.
Unbelievable. And you prosecuted Pennsylvania's very first weapons of mass destruction case?
That's right. We had a group of drug dealers who was in a fight with another group of drug dealers. As a matter of fact, this fight involved this Dawood Bey and Kabani Savage. And Kabani Savage was the last person in federal court in Pennsylvania to be convicted and receive the death penalty. So he's on death row.
Oh my goodness.
Because he murdered and killed many people. He was involved with the drug trade, and his case led to the bug in the mayor's office, Mayor Street's office.
Oh my goodness.
Well, anyway,
yes.
This drug gang were in a fight with Kabani Savage and Dawood Bey. And in this fight, they had stockpiled weapons and bombs, and they were going to go to war with this other drug gang. You know what the problem is? They're about 5 blocks from Temple University, and there's family and children living around these homes.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Just hold that,
Sure.
because we're going to come back to that. Scott, what fabulous and engrossing stories, folks. I'm into this. We'll be right back with the advocates.
Add us on social media to watch bloopers, behind the scenes footage, previews, and more.
I work 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. So when I'm off the clock, I gotta get stuff done. So when I need a snack, I need something healthy, tasty, and easy to eat. Like wonderful pistachios without the shells. They're protein-powered, delicious, and great on the go. And that's perfect for me.
Thanks, Liz.
A woman without a lot of time.
Whether you're a gourmet cook or just want to eat like one, visit Rostelli Market Fresh, your home for the freshest locally sourced ingredients to please everyone who loves great food. Our organic meats, quality seafood, and free-range poultry are cut fresh to order. Chefs create culinary-inspired prep foods made fresh every day, which pair nicely with our vast selection of fine wines and spirits. Choose from handmade pastas, artisan cheeses, organic produce, and grocery items, all from the finest purveyors. Rostelli Market Fresh, from our family to yours.
RVN TV is a platform for people of any industry to share their story. Over 285,000 viewers are tuning in to RVN TV shows monthly. We guarantee a great experience that you'll be sharing with everyone you know while increasing your personal and company's brand awareness. But what is your brand? According to Forbes, it's a combination of your logo, your product, your design and feel, and your personality. Did you know that aside from being a guest, we offer even more opportunity to boost your brand? Adding your company logo and website on screen during your interview will allow viewers to recognize your brand instantly. Incorporating images and video clips is another great way to showcase your product during your live segment. Let viewers see how good you really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is Dan Cirucci. I'm here with Scott Sigman, a Philadelphia lawyer. And the word of the week this week is misogyny. You hear it a lot now, misogyny, thrown back and forth. What does it really mean? They say, oh, he's a misogynist. It means the hatred of, contempt for, or prejudice against women. It simply means you're a woman hater. Okay? So it's just a fancy word, folks. that has gained vogue right now, misogyny. But Scott, wrap up that story you were telling us.
Yes, we had this group of drug dealers, and actually one of the members of the family was shot and killed right in the living room. So we did an investigation, we did a search warrant, we found drugs, guns, and bombs. And we prosecuted these drug dealers, not only for the drugs they were selling and the potential violence that was going to occur, but because of the bombs they stockpiled that they were going to use against a rival drug gang. I was able to charge them with a new law in Pennsylvania called weapons of mass destruction. And that provided for additional penalties for these drug dealers. And we were able to get to court, and they appealed it, and we were able to win the appeal. So it was the very first case to go to trial on weapons of mass destruction. These drug dealers were eventually convicted and sentenced to prison for a very long term. And it provided a safe area for the neighbors to live in. We actually had the community come to court in this case. And there was a small handicapped child that lived on this very block who walked by this house very often. Interestingly enough, when we did the search warrant, we raided this house, which was a Philadelphia Housing Authority home. And of course, there was a large screen TV and there was a big piano inside. The piano and the floor still had bullet holes from when one of the family members was killed in that house a few months earlier. Just to show you the violence that occurred. It was a horrible, horrible case. But very fortunate that we were able to put them in prison.
Yeah. Now, Scott is no lawyer. He was for quite some time an assistant district attorney. But now, Scott, and I want you to give us your website of your firm. What is your website?
It's just www.scottsigman.com.
Scott Sigman, SCOTT, Sigman, SIGMAN, all one word, .com.
That's it.
Now, Scott, you're often on the other side now.
Yes.
In your private practice, defending people who've been accused of crimes, right?
That's right. After all the experience I gained as a prosecutor, I'm now able to take those skills and represent people charged with homicide, charged with rape, charged with drug and gun offenses. And I represent them in court every day, whether the homicide is involved with selling drugs, or it was some type of feud, or it was just, selling drugs. Whatever it may be, I represent those individuals in court and do my best to advocate for them. And in some cases, they're either found not guilty or the charges are dismissed because of different things that occur in the case. We file a motion to have it dismissed.
Right.
And in some cases, I do my best to work the best deal out possible.
And one of the advantages is you're intimately familiar with the criminal justice system.
That's right.
You've been in it all your life. All your professional life.
You're absolutely right.
Now, let me explain to you folks that lawyers believe, and I'm sure Scott was faithful to this even when he was prosecuting people, that everyone is entitled to a fair trial. This is the oath you take, and this is your belief when you become a lawyer. So it's not that big a transition to be on the other side and be defending people.
No, it's about justice. When I'm going to court, I'm fighting as hard as possible. When I was the prosecutor, I fought for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to put people who deserve to be in prison and get convictions of people who deserve to be convicted. Now, as a defense attorney, I analyze these cases, I read these cases, and I'm looking for mistakes that are made, and those mistakes could be a reason why someone doesn't go to jail or someone doesn't get convicted. Because in our system and under our Constitution, we believe it's better to let 10 guilty people go free than have one innocent person convicted. So our system's set up where we have a lot of safeguards under the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments of our Constitution that protect people, whether it's a search warrant, whether it's a car stop, whether it's a probable cause or reasonable suspicion. We have protections in our Constitution, and I fight for those protections every day. That's pretty much what I do.
Yeah.
I use our Constitution to defend people, and in many cases, people go free because mistakes are made.
And so your clients are different now, but you're still seeking the same thing, justice.
Seeking justice.
You're still seeking justice.
Exactly.
And you handle other kinds of cases as well.
That's right.
That people can call your office
I
for.
handle DUI cases, I handle simple assault, I handle sexual assault, but a lot of the cases I deal with on a daily basis, unfortunately, in our society, are drugs, guns, and sometimes that ends up being a murder. But drugs and guns are really every day you hear about drug and gun cases, and a lot of them are intermingled, but drug cases are a huge part of my practice. And that even includes when the government tries to seize people's homes and seize people's cars under the drug forfeiture laws.
Right.
So I defend people of that as well.
And Scott, bad people that want to get their hands on guns, it's still pretty easy for them to do that?
It's very interesting you ask. I just had a case about a week ago involving a relatively young fella. It's still a teenager. He was watching his cousin get beat up in front of a 7-Eleven, all on video. It's all on color video from the 7-Eleven. He goes inside the 7-Eleven into a backpack and pulls out a 2-shot Derringer and waves it around at the crowd. And the crowd disperses, police come, and people are arrested for beating up his cousin, but the police watch the video. And they see my client waving around a 2-shot Derringer. And they go in the 7-Eleven, they go in the backpack, and there it is, a 2-shot Derringer. And that's something you get for $25 on our street. You can buy it anywhere.
On the street?
On the street.
If you know where to go.
You can get a 9mm Glock. You could get a 40 caliber Glock, $25 on the street. These are $500 guns.
Philadelphia has very tough gun laws, right?
That's right. As a matter of fact, no one under 21 can have a handgun, but people under 21 often do have handguns. Philadelphia, unlike the rest of Pennsylvania, has an extra law. Under the Uniform Firearms Act, under Title 18, you can't carry a gun unless you have a permit in Pennsylvania. But there's another law that says you can't carry a gun in a car or on your person in the city of the first class, which happens to be only one, Philadelphia. So Philadelphia has even an extra law that applies if you have a gun in a car or on the street and you don't have a permit.
Wow.
So Philadelphia has an extra law. Pennsylvania has very strict gun laws in the sense that if you're a criminal, you can't have a gun.
Right.
So certain crimes, if you're convicted of, drug dealing, murder, robbery, certain violent offenses, you can never have a gun on you, on your person, or in your home. That's one of the gun laws. And that's a very strong gun law.
Right.
So there are strong gun laws. Don't kid yourself.
That doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't going to be guns around. Scott, you were recently, I suppose you're affiliated with the Coast Guard, were recently part of a big cocaine bust. People might have read about it or seen about it on television in Philadelphia, one of the biggest cocaine busts ever.
Yes, I'm part of the Coast Guard Auxiliary for Flotilla 476, which is based in Sector Delaware Bay, Philadelphia. And we were very surprised to find a few weeks ago a cargo ship coming up the Delaware River that was coming from Chile contained 17.5 tons of cocaine. Basically 15,930 bricks of cocaine were on this ship. This ship was coming to Philadelphia, but then it was going to Europe. It was going to end up in Antwerp. And information gained from the investigation leads us to believe a lot of this cocaine was actually headed to Europe. But when it arrived in Philadelphia, Coast Guard, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, and Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, were able to take possession of this cocaine, as well as arrest 5 people from the ship. And it ends up being one of the largest cocaine seizures in the history of the United States, right here in the Port of Philadelphia.
Incredible, an incredible story.
Terminal.
This is an amazing guy, Scott Sigman, ScottSigman.com. He's a Philadelphia lawyer. It's been so great having him. And I want to end with the quote of the week. I think you're going to like this quote, Scott. It's from H.L. Mencken, the journalist. And this is what he said. Injustice is fairly easy to bear. What really stings is justice. This is Dan Cirucci. This is The Advocates. We'll see you again next week. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Cirucci. Real pleasure.